Episode 5 titled Partings has just dropped, and boy is there a lot to discuss, from Balrogs to sword keys and even the origin of Mithril. Today we will do a full breakdown of episode 5 plus easter eggs, so without further ado let's get right into it. We start with Meteor Man on the hilltop with Nori, and soon enough we hear him say a few more words. He is learning. We then have a nice little hint to him calling himself, quote, a peril, and by the end of the episode Nori Brandyfoot does realise this whilst Meteor Man is healing himself with water and ice. But Nori does see something troublesome when we go through the flashbacks, maybe something not shown to us, the audience, as of yet, and it had to be something quite daunting as someone who had defended him from the start and was never scared of Meteor Man, as we saw at the beginning, switched up on him, so we shall see. Of course, in Poppy's song we get a line stating, quote, that not all who wander are lost, which is a nice reference to the poem The Riddle of Strider in The Lord of the Rings. As a little easter egg, the other version of the song, not sung by Poppy actor Megan Richards, the song is actually sung by Janet Roddick, who worked and contributed to all 6 Middle-earth films too. We see the Harfoots travel to many places with Wandering Days sung in the background, and it seems like they ended up at the Braids, where the Anduin splits into several rivers, northeast of where Minas Tirith would be. At last we get our first look into Bridie Sission's character and the group and race named, quote, the Mystics, and they are at the landing spot of Meteor Man, and as we rightly predicted in the last episode, and they are after him on the search. Lindsay Webber told us that they are from Rune, so this meteorite must have been seen from even further away in Middle-earth to the extent of Rune itself, and this must have alerted them. My current theory is that just like Wardreg, they think Meteor Man and his arrival is the sign for the return of Sauron, or is Sauron himself, so they are in search for the Meteor Man, which might not bode well for the Harfoots and Nori. Also, one of the Mystics is holding up a shield of some sorts, which either looks like a constellation maybe similar to Meteor Man's arrival, or even this mark that Meteor Man carved in episode 2. Maybe this mark means something more, we shall see. The next shot we see is of Adar looking up at the sun with its light beaming down on his face, and the fact he can tolerate the sun suggests that he is not an orc or not completely one as of yet, as the orc that comes up to him is hiding away from the sun using their sun cloaks to keep the rays off their skin. We even get an insight into Adar's human, actually say elven side, which he mentions in dialogue to the orc, suggesting that he won't feel that side for much longer. Quite ominous. The Tirharad folk split up and leave, with Wardreg and few stay, lowering the chances of survival for the Tirharad folk at Ostirith Watchtower, including Arondir. When Wardreg leaves, he tells Theo to come with him, as he believes he is going to Sauron and that this is finally their chance to serve their beautiful master. But that ends up not being the case when they meet Adar, who seems almost offended by this being called Sauron. Oh no, Annoying Boy 1 might have died here. Anyways, all jokes aside, there is a high chance he is dead because in some trailer shots we see Wardreg by the side of Adar, so he seems like to have gained his trust. In the X-ray feature on Prime Video, when it talks about this scene with Elendil and him on the books, it says, quote, Numenor uses books instead of scrolls for the ease of transmitting information from one generation to the next. Originally, they wrote in Elven script, Tengwa, but over time it changed to accommodate their own language and became a unique script of its own. This is a cool little addition and easter egg. Halbrand does not want to go back to Middle-earth, and this is clear, which also mirrors the sentiment of some of the Númenórean folk getting angry at Pharazôn, including Iarian, the daughter of Elendil, who will become one of the faithful, who even guilt trips Kemen into blowing up this ship and almost killing himself, and nearly fails just like Guy Fawkes, due to Isildur also being there after his father not permitting him to join the navy, but alas, that ship does blow up. In this scene we get our first real in-depth understanding into the motives of Chancellor Pharazôn, and in correlation of the lore and timeline of Númenor, also in correspondence with the time compression, we are seeing the beginning of their expansionist and imperialistic aims and control over the men of Middle-earth, which happened gradually after the rule of Tarminasti, the 11th king of Numenor. We see this motive when Pharazôn even states the wealth they can gain from Middle-earth, quote, ores, forest, trades, tribute. This could be a hint to the beginning of the building of colonies in Middle-earth. The ill aims and motives of Pharazôn and his idea of a war for Numenor, as in contrast to a war for Galadriel, is immediately and nicely contrasted in this next scene by Tar-Palante warning Miriel to not go to Middle-earth, as there is only darkness there. So maybe with his foresight he can see that if they do go and wage war in Middle-earth, the men of Numenor will become greedy, thus contributing to the doom of Numenor that we saw at the beginning of the last episode. Now on to one of the most controversial aspects of the episode, Mithril. We learn in the account by Elrond, who also in this is referred to as Elrond Peredel, which means half-elven, and he recounts the song of the roots of Ithilgir, with Ithilgir being the peaks of the Misty Mountains, where a battle between an elven warrior with a heart as pure as Manwë and then a Balrog of Morgoth, and then in the centre of them we have this tree which houses one of the lost Silmarils. Of course, in Tolkien's works, the 3 Silmarils are accounted for, one even with Elrond's father in the sky, which we immediately get a nod to moments later on the statue of Arendelle within the crown. After the defeat of Morgoth, Maedhros and Maglor, the sons of Feanor, took the remaining 2 Silmarils, and one ended up cast in the sea whilst the other was cast into a fiery pit. So maybe Arendelle was drunk one day and in the sky and it landed in a tree. But all jokes aside, Elrond even refers to the story as, quote, an obscure legend, and let's hope it remains so, as on the subject and functioning of the Silmarils, it is a very delicate topic and a fine thread to walk, and the showrunners do seem quite daring in this regard. But as Tolkien fans, it is understandable to at least be surprised and question this current alteration. If this is indeed an alteration, then this could result in us having the Silmarils, which due to lightning casting a tree, results in Mithril, which then results in the Elven Rings. As in the scenes with Celebrimbor in this episode, he does seem to be interested in them quite a bit, and was even in cahoots with Gil-galad in tricking Elrond. Again, it is a delicate matter, and my hope is it is another trick by Gil-galad, as is the elves not surviving past next spring, or they will fade away and wither away. Otherwise, it does seem like the elves might not survive without Mithril, which Durin does in the end obliges and agrees to help the elves. But then we see Gil-galad moments later watching them. If the whole death by spring and the story of Mithril is made up by Gil-galad to achieve his aims, or even maybe being spread by Sauron, then that would make more sense than lightning hitting a tree and then there's Silmarils in Misty Mountains. We know Glorfindel fights a Balrog on a cliff in Gondolin, so might this also be a nice little homage to that? Galadriel's ring Nenye was made of Mithril, so there is some textual basis, but the whole dying by spring is at face value rather peculiar. This segment around Ontimo and his family seeing him as a war hero already, in television and media, never ends up too well for that character. We then go back to our boy Halbrand, who admits to knowing what the Tirharad people are going through and mentioning to Galadriel that he's done some very bad things in his past too, quote, you don't know what I did before I ended up on that raft. If you aren't convinced already that he might not be the best of characters, this scene doesn't do anything to reduce that belief. Also, how does Halbrand know that the orcs are going to Ostirith? Wasn't he like on a raft for a number of days? Again, very strange. Could be a plot device or could be something with the writing. But Halbrand did survive the orcs attack in Horden somehow, but what he did in order to survive might be of importance and might even bite him in the back. We shall see. Then we have the sword and it being a key, we see the bigger blade on the wall, and the fact that it is a key may hint to it activating something, and I have a sneaking suspicion that this might have to do with Orodruin. We shall see. Halbrand takes the call on the Númenórean set sail with 500 soldiers and 3 ships to Middle-earth. From a television level, this episode is much stronger and the story moved forward a lot, and the backstory and exposition phase is now behind us. But what is not behind us is the decisions that have been made around Mithril and of course the elves dying by spring. I do hope this is either Gil-galad lying to us and what he wants is the Mithril, or maybe Sauron or Anantar spreading the seeds of malcontent and rumour about the fading of the elves. But if not, I really don't understand why this whole Mithril business has become so complex and interwoven with the Silmarils. Of course, there might be an explanation in later episodes, but as of right now, I think it is fair for Tolkien fans for us to remain skeptical and, let's say, intrigued as to how they are developing this concept, if it is rather on the surface level, as it is a rather odd lore deviation. Other from that, it was nice to see the Mystics and the Meteor Man storyline alongside the Half-Wits. It's full of mysteries as always. But that's about it for the breakdown Easter egg video and review. Make sure to like and subscribe until the next video, my friends. Goodbye.